When Karoline Leavitt walked onto Stephen Colbert's late-night stage, no one expected the kind of energy that was about to unfold. The former Trump White House staffer turned congressional candidate had been invited on under the pretense of a light-hearted political discussion. But things took a sharp turn when Colbert dropped a claim that had viewers and commentators buzzing before the episode even ended. Colbert, known for his sharp wit and pointed political commentary, leaned in during the middle of the conversation and casually stated, "Isn't it true, Karoline, that your campaign has received support from extremist groups linked to January 6th? The audience gasped. It was the kind of claim that could derail a political career or ignite a movement. Levitt didn't flinch. With a composed smile, she straightened up and replied, "That's absolutely false, Stephen, and I think you know it." Her tone was calm, but her eyes were steely. Throwing around labels like that might make for good television, but it doesn't make for good journalism or honest political discourse. Colbert, ever the professional, raised an eyebrow and countered, "But there are documented contributions from organizations whose members were at the Capitol that day." Leavitt immediately pushed back. Being present at a protest doesn't automatically make someone an extremist, and guilt by association is a dangerous game. My campaign doesn't accept money from any group with ties to violence or insurrection. That's a line we don't cross. Period. The tension was palpable. Even Colbert's usually spirited audience grew quiet, unsure whether to cheer or wait for a punchline. But Levitt didn't stop there. "You want to talk about extremism?" she continued. "Let's talk about the people in this country who are being silenced for speaking up, being labeled threats for holding different opinions. What we're seeing right now is a politicization of everything, from law enforcement to the media, and it's dividing this country more than ever." Colbert, looking slightly caught off guard, tried to pivot. "But surely you can acknowledge the danger posed by groups who seek to undermine democratic institutions?" Karoline nodded. "Absolutely, but I'd argue that censoring dissent, weaponizing intelligence agencies against political opponents, and labeling millions of Americans as threats because they voted for someone you don't like, that's just as dangerous, if not more so." That drew applause. A mix of surprise and respect echoed through the studio. What was supposed to be a soft jab turned into a full-on political volley. Colbert smiled and said, "Well, I didn't expect a Fox News segment tonight, but here we are." Leavitt laughed, politely then said, "I didn't expect a CNN debate either, but I came prepared." By now, the online world was already exploding. Clips of the exchange were spreading across social media. Some hailed her as a fearless conservative warrior, while others criticized her for deflecting and evading a serious question. But no one could deny it. Karoline Leavitt had left her mark. In the post-show breakdown, political analysts couldn't help but discuss the boldness of Leavitt's performance. Many pointed out that while Colbert has a history of poking fun at Republican guests, few actually push back in such a direct and confident manner. It was rare to see someone enter that lion's den and hold their ground so effectively. Within hours, hashtags like #Levitt vs. Colbert and Karoline Claps Back were trending. Her supporters rallied, calling the moment a masterclass in calm under pressure, while detractors doubled down on the original claim, demanding transparency on campaign finances. Leavitt's team was quick to issue a statement following the show. "Karoline Leavitt will never back down from standing up for the truth," the statement read. She went on national television and defended not only her integrity, but also the millions of Americans who are tired of being smeared and silenced by elitist media narratives. In interviews the next morning, Levitt expanded on her appearance. "I knew walking into that studio that I wasn't going to get softball questions," she said on a conservative morning show. "But what I didn't expect was such a blatant attempt to associate me with something I've never supported. It's not just unfair to me, it's unfair to voters who deserve real conversations, not character assassinations." Colbert, for his part, briefly addressed the backlash the following night. "Apparently I hit a nerve last night," he said with a half smile. "I thought we were just having a little political sparring. Guess I'll bring gloves next time." His audience laughed, but the damage or impact, depending on your side, had already been done. What this moment revealed was more than just a disagreement between a comedian and a candidate. It was a microcosm of the larger war going on in American discourse, the constant tension between the media and conservative figures, the ongoing debate about truth, narrative, and bias. Leavitt's response served to solidify her status as more than just another Republican trying to make it in a polarized era. It was a bold reminder that the new wave of conservative voices isn't afraid to walk into hostile territory and fight back with clarity, conviction, and an unapologetic belief in their values. And in an election cycle where every moment counts, this one moment on late-night TV may have done more for Karoline Leavitt than a dozen campaign ads ever could. In the days that followed, pundits from both sides weighed in. Some liberal commentators criticized Colbert for what they saw as a poorly substantiated accusation, arguing that the platform of comedy doesn't absolve one from responsibility when making claims with serious implications. Others stood by Colbert, claiming that questioning a candidate's associations is fair game, especially in a political climate as fraught as today's. But the real winner might have been Levitt, who took the moment and used it as a launch pad. Her campaign fund reportedly saw a spike in donations after the appearance. Social media engagement skyrocketed. Independent voters began asking more questions, not about the accusation, but about who Karoline Leavitt really was and what she stood for. In subsequent town halls and interviews, she doubled down on her performance, framing it as proof of her resilience and authenticity. "I don't back down," she repeated. "I represent the kind of leadership that tells it like it is, whether you're on late-night TV or on the debate stage." It's a smart strategy in the age of viral politics. When a single clip can define a politician in the public eye, leveraging that moment with poise and messaging can be far more powerful than any press release. And that's what Karoline Leavitt did. She didn't just survive the Colbert show, she owned it. Of course, not everyone was convinced. Some Democratic strategists argued that her refusal to acknowledge any legitimacy to Colbert's claim made her appear evasive. She could have taken a more balanced tone, one analyst noted. Instead, she went full-throttle defiant. That plays well to the base, but does it win moderates? That question remains open, but what's not in doubt is the impact the moment had. For late-night television, it was one of the most talked-about interviews in months. For Leavitt, it was a defining moment, a chance to reframe the narrative and establish herself as a contender with grit and backbone. Whether you agree with her politics or not, her performance on that stage underscored something undeniable. Karoline Leavitt is not someone who fades into the background. She meets fire with fire, and in doing so, she's become a symbol of the next generation of Republican fighters, media-savvy, message-disciplined, and unafraid to go head-to-head with the most influential voices on the left. And for those watching, from the sidelines, one thing's for sure, this won't be the last time you hear her name in a headline. As the days turned into weeks, the Colbert appearance became a staple reference point in Karoline Leavitt's speeches. Clips of the exchange were strategically woven into campaign ads and fundraising emails. "They tried to smear me," she'd say at rallies, "but I stood tall and told the truth. And that's what I'll keep doing in Washington." The episode didn't just elevate her profile, it galvanized her supporters. Conservative commentators praised her as the new face of GOP resilience. One even compared her to a young Ronald Reagan, citing her poise under pressure and quick-witted responses. "She didn't get angry," a columnist wrote. "She got smarter. That's the kind of conservative leadership we need right now." But it wasn't just Republicans talking. Even centrists and independents found themselves intrigued by Leavitt's calm, calculated demeanor. In a time where viral outbursts often define candidates, her composure stood out. She didn't yell, she didn't deflect, she engaged, and that, in many voters' eyes, showed maturity and control. In a town hall held in New Hampshire, a key primary state, one voter stood up and said, "I don't agree with all of your positions, Karoline, but after what I saw on Colbert, I believe you're honest, and that counts for something these days." Leavitt smiled and responded, "I'm not here to say what people want to hear. I'm here to say what I believe. If we can at least start with truth and respect, that's the beginning of fixing what's broken in this country. Meanwhile, political opponents scrambled to counter the momentum. A Democratic PAC released an ad attempting to tie Levitt to far-right elements, once again bringing up the original claim Colbert had made. But it backfired. Viewers recognized it as the same tactic she had already publicly dismantled, and now she had video proof of her pushback. Her campaign used that to their advantage, cutting together a rebuttal ad that spliced Colbert's accusation with her on-air response, ending with the tagline, "Karoline Leavitt, not afraid, not for sale." The message resonated. Her campaign saw another jump in grassroots donations, and online engagement surged again. What started as an ambush on late-night comedy had turned into a multi-week campaign boost, proving that, with the right strategy, even the most unexpected platform can become a launchpad. Behind the scenes, political strategists took note. What Karoline did was flip the script, one GOP consultant said on a podcast. Usually conservatives go on these shows, get mocked, and disappear. But she went on, held her own, and used it to her advantage. That's a blueprint now. Even some liberal observers reluctantly admitted that Colbert's approach may have misfired. "He's good at making politicians squirm," one commentator wrote, "but Levitt didn't squirm, she sparred. And honestly, she won that round." As election season heated up, Levitt continued to lean into her brand of fearless engagement. She launched a new web series on social media titled Unfiltered with Karoline, where she broke down key issues in a direct, no-nonsense format. The show drew tens of thousands of views within days, and fans appreciated the behind-the-scenes insight and unpolished authenticity. Every so often, a viewer would comment, "Found you through Colbert, stuck around because you speak the truth." That crossover appeal is rare. In a media environment dominated by echo chambers, Karoline Leavitt managed to break through not by pandering, but by standing firm in the face of opposition. She didn't just survive late-night television, she made it her stage. Meanwhile, mainstream media continued to dissect the fallout. Some anchors speculated whether her appearance was a calculated risk or a lucky break. But to those in Levitt's inner circle, there was no doubt. She knew exactly what she was walking into. One aide shared, "She studied past interviews, anticipated the attacks, and planned her responses. That wasn't luck, that was preparation." And that preparation was paying off. Polls began to shift. In her home district, Levitt climbed several points. Among younger voters, particularly those skeptical of legacy media, her favorability increased notably. Her social media following ballooned, and influencers from both political and apolitical spaces started sharing clips of her appearance with captions like, "This is how you handle yourself under pressure." The narrative had changed. No longer just a former Trump aide or another young Republican candidate, Karoline Leavitt was now a symbol of pushback, a counter to what many saw as a one-sided media landscape. To her critics, she remained polarizing. But even they had to admit she was effective. And that's what made her dangerous to the status quo. As new interviews came in, hosts braced for a guest who wouldn't be cornered easily. Radio stations, YouTube shows, even rival networks extended invitations. Everyone wanted to talk to the woman who stood her ground on Colbert, and Levitt accepted most of them, not to argue, but to engage. She kept her responses sharp, her tone measured, and her message clear. "I'm not here to win a popularity contest," she told one podcast host. "I'm here to wake people up." And wake them up, she did. By the time the next debate rolled around, pundits predicted fireworks. "If she handled Colbert like that," one analyst said, "she's going to be a major player on that stage." Backstage before the debate, Levitt was calm. Her team was focused, efficient. No gimmicks, no rehearsed zingers. Just preparation and strategy. "You nervous?" a reporter asked as she stepped onto the stage. She smiled. "Not at all. This is what I came to do." And with that, she walked into another spotlight, this time with the eyes of the nation squarely on her, not as a guest, not as a target, but as a contender. Because sometimes all it takes is one moment, one question, one response. And Karoline. Leavitt didn't just respond, she rewrote the narrative.